This is the C and I think F example problems from class that we didn't do for completing the square. I think we started C, and they asked us to solve this by completing the square. And the first thing we want to do is to make it as easy as possible is to take out the greatest common factor, so they're all divisible by 2. And we'll go ahead and mention that the greatest common factor is 2. So we can go ahead and divide both sides of the equation by 2, and we're going to have something that's a little bit smaller there. And now it's ready to be completed. So we're going to take the middle term, b, we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. So the middle term is 2, we're going to divide it by 2, and then we're going to square it. 1 squared is 1. And what this is going to actually factor into is it's a positive x squared plus 2x, so it's going to factor into an x plus 1 quantity squared. We're going to go ahead and write out this step here, though. Once I find out what my b over 2 squared is, I'm going to go ahead and add that to both sides. The x squared plus 2x plus 1, that is the completed square. It's going to factor into x plus 1 quantity squared. The other side is going to equal 7. And remember, the square root is going to undo the square cup. I think that's the joke we said in class. Anyways, square and square root are going to undo each other. So we're going to take the square root of both sides. Don't forget the plus and minus. And because the square root of 7 and the 1 are not like terms, we can go ahead and don't have to split it up into 2 equations. We can just subtract 1 from both sides and say that x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 7. Okay. The other example I think was, it wasn't F, it was letter E. And here's what the problem was. It was 2x squared minus 3x minus 1. And what we want is we just want the x squared and the x on one side and then the number on the other, and to help get it into the form. So we're going to add 1 to both sides first. And I'm going to mention the form that we need. So we need x squared plus bx equals c. If we have that, then we can go ahead and complete the square. So rewriting 2x squared minus 3x equals 1. And again, notice in the form it is x squared, not 2x squared. There's no coefficient other than 1 in front of the x squared. So we need to divide both sides by 2. And we get x squared minus 3 halves x equals 1 half. In class, I mentioned that dividing something into 2 pieces is kind of like taking halves. So because we're dealing with a fraction, instead of doing b over 2 squared, we're going to do 1 half times b squared. Okay, so we're going to plug in our b over 2. Well, it's not b over 2, 1 half times b. So 1 half times negative 3 halves squared. The inside is going to be negative 3 over 4 quantity squared. When we finish factoring, it's going to end up being x minus 3/4 quantity squared when we complete the square. What we're going to add to both sides is 9 over 16. So we're going to go ahead and add that to both sides of our equation here. Anything we do to one side, we got to do the other. And we'll kind of separate some of our work here, and we're going to do a little bit of side work here. Because I need a common denominator, over on the right hand side we have 1 half and 9 over 16. 1 half can be written as something over 16, so to get from 2 to 16 we had to multiply by 8. So we're going to multiply the 1 by 8 and get 8. The left-hand side factored into x minus 3/4 squared, and the right-hand side becomes 17 over 16 when we add 8/16, which is 1 half, to 9/16. So again, what undoes the square is the square root. So we're going to square root both sides. Don't forget your plus and minus. X minus 3/4 is equal to plus or minus. I don't know what the square root of 17 is, so we're going to leave it as square root of 16, but I do know that the square root of 16 is 4. We'll add 3/4 to both sides, and because they both have a denominator of 4, we can go ahead and write it over as a single fraction, and there we have it.